Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's Blair Johnson with the Badass Records podcast, reminding you that new episodes drop Thursdays. You can keep tabs on Twitter, Instagram, where you stream your audio, YouTube, etc. If you feel like supporting the show, make sure you check out the merch store at badassrecordspodcast.com. And if you want to hit me up about being on an episode with me in person here in Kansas City, or if you want me to travel to you, we can probably make that happen too. It's badassrecordspodcast@gmail.com. Appreciate you stopping by. Hope you enjoy the show. So, what do we say? 108. Episode 108, Badass Records Podcast. Brad Smith, how's it going?
Going well. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here. I appreciate you. We wound up communicating because of your band, Eggs on Mars, right?
Correct.
David Bowie asked, is there life on Mars? And you just said, Eggs on Mars. What's the origin story there with that name?
I think that there actually is a connection between Bowie, but it really came from my friend Jacob Denny. He was like making this list of like sort of fake band names for a project he was doing, and I liked the Eggs on Mars name, and so I said, if I ever do a band, I'll take that name, and so I did. And I've never really at the time I thought it was kind of a joke name, but it kind of just stuck, and we was rolled with it.
Okay. Now, when I first started poking around to get ready for this, I sort of hit a dead end because I think the link, the Bandcamp link on the Eggs on Mars, which is eggs_on_Mars, correct?
Maybe.
I think it is. I think it is.
For different things, yeah.
But the link to the Bandcamp goes to Perpetual Doom.
Oh, that's on our Instagram. It does, yeah. So
okay.
Our link from because we did a compilation with them. So
okay,
that's what we're linking to.
And that's a label out of where are they from?
Somewhere in the Northeast, actually.
Oh, so you didn't know a person like face to face? It was all just digital correspondence or whatever.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so then late, I found where I wanted to be, which is the Eggs on Mars does have its own Bandcamp and Facebook and SoundCloud and Spotify and Apple Music and what else am I missing?
I don't know. Tidal.
Okay.
Pandora.
Yeah,
I don't know.
all the stuff.
I don't know.
Nice. So, as I mentioned just a sec ago, March 8th at Hillsiders in Strawberry Hill, KCK, Eggs on Mars is gigging with, are you sharing the bill with
Yeah.
Who else?
Wills Van Dorn. He's doing his full band set, so.
Okay.
He's our good bud. Excited to be playing with him.
Nice.
And then our friends from Joplin are going to come up.
That's right.
Gold Star, and they're also pretty sweet too.
And how old is Eggs on Mars?
We have been a band for about 10 years now.
Oh,
so
dang.
with the decade mark this year, I think.
So that answers my question. How do you have friends that are other bands? And I mean, you've been doing it for a decade, so.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Which is weird to say, but yeah.
So 8 releases are visible on Bandcamp. It looked like the most recent was Warm Breakfast.
Yep.
From last year. And what is it, 10 tracks, about 30-ish minutes, is that?
It's pretty short. I think it's maybe 25.
25, okay.
Yeah.
How old are you?
I am 29.
You're 29?
Yeah.
Okay.
Last year in the 20s. So.
Hey, I'm last year in the 40s, so I won't say I remember the last year in the 20s, but I know it happened. Now, I appreciate not only you being here, but hooking me up with a list, which was immediately stunning to me because I gathered that you're a young fellow, and your tastes, at least from your list, kind of lean to an older person, almost exclusively. So that was very fascinating to me. But before we dig into that, are you born and raised in the area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just south of Lee Summit.
Okay.
Greenwood by address, but
Greenwood,
country boy.
good old Barrigas.
Yeah. Mexican restaurant.
Ramon
there.
Gomez. I used to sell groceries to
Oh, how
him. So
fun.
I know that's Maine, right?
It is, yeah.
And then if you go, if you go west, you wind up in Lee Summit.
Yeah.
But it seems like Lee Summit would be east and north of Greenwood, but there you are.
Yeah.
It's all weird over there. And siblings.
I am the third of four.
Third of four.
Yeah, I got an older brother, and I got an older sister and a younger brother.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
And any idea how mom and dad met?
They met in high school.
Okay.
High school sweethearts.
Okay.
Fort Osage. So
Really?
Yeah, all my family's from Independence, actually. So
Okay.
yeah,
Independence, Kansas?
Missouri.
Yeah. And Fort Osage is where?
Independence.
It is? Oh,
Yeah.
Fort Osage is not a town. It's a high school.
It's a high school.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a fort, I think, at one point. I think you can go to the actual,
Right.
old fort.
High school sweethearts.
Yeah.
And still going strong.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
40 some odd years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very nice. And do you have any memories of them putting on music to listen to in the home when you guys were young?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
What
Yeah.
what were they into?
Mom liked John Denver.
Okay.
And then mostly a lot of country.
Sure.
Alan Jackson was played
Okay.
quite a bit. And then really fond memories of listening to Tom T. Hall with my dad.
Tom T. Hall?
Tom T. Hall. Yeah.
Not familiar.
Oh, he's a great country songwriter.
Okay,
And then
okay.
Don Williams.
Okay.
So kind of 70s, 80s country is mostly what they would play, and they kind of
Okay.
exposed us to, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then could you at some point see? I imagine they put music on for all. When all four of you were young. Did your older two siblings? Was there a visible path that they started down musically that you were able to observe or think back on?
Oh yeah, no, very clearly. My older brother, I just wanted to do everything he was doing.
Okay.
So he was listening to Nirvana and stuff like that, and so that's kind of when we started to learn guitar. He learned "Come as You Are" on the
Okay.
guitar, and so I was like, oh, I want to learn to play guitar.
Killer opening riff.
No, yeah, it is great for a beginner.
Yeah.
So yeah, he kind of started listening to that kind of music, and then from that we kind of listened to the classics. I had a very chronologically correct exposure to music.
Oh wow.
I used to listen to the oldies station, Oldies 95. I listened to 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
And then we got into rock. So I was oh, Led Zeppelin and all the classic rock stuff, and then kind of worked our way up to there's modern bands playing. Who knew? So so it's a big revelation. Whoa, I can go see
music
a band.
ended at
Yeah.
So that's older brother. Is he the firstborn?
He is. Yeah.
And then second is your sister.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
what did she get into stuff?
Yeah, actually, she contributed some too. She was into sort of Death Cab for Cutie, kind of that sort of. So that kind of exposed me to another level of music too. So the sort of hard rocking of Nirvana and 90s grunge, and then the more kind of at the time modern
Yeah.
sort of indie emo music. So
Yeah.
very important.
Now, when it comes to you and you taking that first, step down the path of carving out your own tastes, not necessarily referring to your list, but was there an album that you first fell in love with or borrowed or bought with your own money, something that stands out in that regard?
I think the first album I bought with my own money was my parents had a record player, and they had a few old records. And one was Something New by the Beatles, which is the American equivalent of Hard Day's Night.
Okay.
And so that's the first CD I bought because I knew those songs. So Hard Day's Night is on there, and some other stuff. The things we said today. It's not like a huge hitting album with a ton of hits, but
right.
That's kind of the first one I remember buying.
Nice.
Borders Bookstore.
What's that?
Borders Bookstore in Lee Summit.
Right. How about shows? Did you see concerts as a young person, or maybe into adolescence? Or
Actually, it's funny. Cake was my first concert.
Oh, really?
They're coming to town, and I think it's been about. I thought that was the first show I went to with my sister. I think it was Cake and Smashing Pumpkins.
Oh, wow.
At
What a
Sandstone.
bill.
So
Okay.
yeah, it was cool.
now was she old enough to drive, or did you guys get dropped off? Or
She was pretty young. She was probably like, 16 or 17. And I was in middle school, so
Okay.
we went and it's Sandstone is really far from where we lived. It's like an hour and a half. Like probably it's like an hour. So we drove out there, and that was my first concert experience. It was pretty cool.
Now, I mean, would that have been pre-internet?
No,
Okay, so there was GPS.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, I don't think we had GPS then. I think we just had like a printed like
MapQuest.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's what you did. You
Right.
did that, or you got lost and you called mom like,
Uh-huh.
I'm here, and
Yeah.
I don't know how to get to this highway or whatever.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, just I love the meme of the it's like a middle-aged blonde-headed dude just making this face, and the verbiage is my ancestors watching me plug something into GPS that I've driven to 30 times.
Yeah. I can relate to that.
Yeah, as opposed to having fold-out gigantic maps and quarters in case you need to hit a payphone. I mean, and you could venture out to some place if you didn't really know where you're going and get lost, and your tribe might not know about it for hours.
It's true.
Like, oh, you were going to go to that. How did we got lost? It took us like 8 hours to get home. That's awesome, though. So you said something just a second ago about we first started playing guitar, and you and
Yeah. Well, my older brother started playing, and then I kind of wanted to like play immediately. So
Okay.
then we always had a guitar around. I think mom like maybe wanted to learn, so we kind of had the family guitar that he started playing, and then we just kind of started acquiring guitars and stuff.
So what age are you first actually putting in some time with it?
Like probably fourth grade, so probably like 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then that guitar is mostly accessible to you whenever you want to pick it up for a good little bit, and then you get your own first one, or how did that go?
About like that, yeah. So
Okay.
he was kind of playing the big one, so I got like a tiny little, like 3/4 or maybe even like it's a teeny tiny little guitar. I still have it actually. It's in my car. I keep it in there just because I need to like play guitar somewhere. So
nice. I gotta put this down real quick. Mm-hmm. So you eventually though you get your own, and then is it guitar moving forward forever, or did you ever deviate to fiddle around with other stuff? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I like was listening to Led Zeppelin and stuff, and I'd be like, oh, what's that? And so I got a mandolin at one point.
Oh, wow.
And I played it for like, the few Led Zeppelin songs that require mandolin. I was like, okay, I'm done with that. And then the silliest thing that I ever did was me and my friend Justin bought a sitar together.
Oh, wow.
And like for a while we're like, we'll share it, and like I can't wait to like, play Norwegian wood or whatever. And then like eventually it turned out to just be like, I'm tired of just like storing this piece of crap like in you. So it's just kind of like, I always went back to guitar. It's just like all these other instruments were kind of like neat and like novelty, but they never really, I couldn't really like work with them in a capacity to like write songs or whatever.
Right. So how many would you say you've had over the years, and how many do you have now?
How many guitars? Mm-hmm. We've between me and my brother, we've probably had like, a dozen different guitars.
Okay.
I think right now I'm just down to like maybe half a dozen.
Okay.
So
down to half a dozen.
Yeah.
A mix of acoustic and electric, I would assume.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And each one, how many electric do you have?
This is actually an interesting conversation right now because I'm in the midst of like transitioning between guitars and like trying to like decide my next move for a guitar. I think I have 3 electrics that are mine, and then one that is my drummer's that I'm playing.
Okay.
And then I have 2 acoustics that are mine, and one that is my bass player's. So,
okay. The 3 electrics that are yours, different tone, different sound, different feel, like, the 8th grade or 7th grade me that went out and bought an electric was like, this is, you don't need like this is, you can, between the knobs and the pickups and the dials on the amp, you can cover all the sounds that you would ever, which is completely not true. So for you, like, does each one have a special?
No, not really.
No.
I'm like the complete reverse of like a gearhead.
Okay.
Like most of my guitars are like old Tiscos, which is like a brand that like Sears sold in like the 60s. Like they're like cheap budget guitars in the 60s. And so that's kind of what I've been playing for the last 10 years. And so I'm kind of like now starting to annoy my bandmates enough because my guitars are always out of tune because they're old and junky. So I'm thinking of getting like a real boy guitar. So
can you quickly tune by ear, or do you need a device to help you? Or
I have a tuner that was gifted
Okay.
to me by my bass player.
Okay.
I think kind of subtly, kind of like Merry Christmas, and also like please, yeah.
just between you and I,
Yeah.
throw this.
No
glove
one's
box.
gonna know.
Yeah,
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 to say it's I don't know, some kind of pedal.
So let's see. My notes are kind of scattered all over the place.
you're fine.
Garage psych pop band from KC is the description for the Eggs on Mars Facebook page. Talked about Warm Breakfast. What was how old is the oldest of the 8 that appear on Eggs on Mars' Bandcamp page?
10 years. This
10.
year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And is a mix of EPs and full length releases?
Yeah. Most
Okay.
of them are albums. I think two are what I would call EPs. But
Okay.
well, actually, maybe there's 3. Like they're kind of like some albums are like really short, and then some EPs are like long. So it's kind of like blurs
Interesting.
that
Yeah.
line of like,
yeah, of course.
is it this amount of songs an EP, or like is this length an album? So it's like,
Right.
yeah.
And I didn't recognize. I wasn't familiar with the studio that it was that Warm Breakfast was recorded. What is it? And where is it?
It's my friend's basement.
Okay.
Actually, not too far from here. He lives in like kind of Waldo area. But
Okay.
My friend Rod Fenton, he's got like a little home studio, and that's where we've done the last 4 albums with him.
Oh wow.
But at least the last 2 we actually recorded in that space. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And what does the timeline look like? Let's just use Warm Breakfast for an example. Is there a primary songwriter that sort of brings the skeleton of a song to the band, and then everybody helps to flesh it out, or is it multiple folks coming with ideas? What does that process look like?
Historically, it's been me, the primary songwriter, kind of
Okay.
bringing the stuff, and then we all kind of, they'll learn their parts around it, and then maybe we'll tweak that, or like this chorus is kind of weak or whatever. So it's a very collaborative and very open
Cool.
thing, which is cool because I hate to just like bring a song and everyone's like, oh, it's perfect, like they don't want to like touch it, but they're not afraid to like say like, yeah, that chorus sucks or
Good.
whatever.
And 4 of you.
Yep.
How did you guys come together and meet one another and so forth?
So me and the drummer are the only 2 original members, actually. Me and Mason, and we went to high school together. And so the founding band was me, Mason, and Justin. And then our friend Justin, he played bass, and then Mason played drums, and I played guitar and sang. And then in 2020, Justin moved to Japan.
Oh, wow.
Pretty good timing, like right before everything blew
Yeah.
up. And so
what drew him there?
he's teaching. He's a teacher over there. So,
Cool. What part?
oh man, where's he at right now?
Oh, he's moved around.
Yeah, he's gone to different places. I think he's in like Nara right now.
Okay.
So.
And have you had some kind of communication with
yeah,
him?
yeah, we like chat on video every once in a while. So
I've traveled so little, but if ever the trajectory of my options to travel opens up and gets wider, like that's a
yeah.
pretty high up there spot.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause anyway. So 2 originals, one guy moves to Japan, and then did you just network to find his replacement, or?
we just went to the high school yearbook. Our friend Doug also went to high school, who plays bass with us.
okay,
So
okay.
he's always kind of been like turning us on to like cool music and stuff. So he's always kind of been like in the periphery around the band, and so it just made a lot of sense to bring him in. He's always turned us on a lot of cool stuff.
Now, when you say the last 4 were recorded in your buddy's Waldo basement studio. Do you all four of you go there at the same time, or do you? And if so, are you like recording, the drums, and then separately you add the bass? Like, what does that process look like?
So for the most of the albums that we've done, I think the last four included, we go and we do like the basic tracking there. So we do drums, bass, and guitar, and then we kind of overdub everything else. So there's like a big component of it that is like live with three of us in the room, and then we overdub the vocals and more guitars and keys and stuff like that.
Okay. And so you've been recording and putting stuff out for 10 years and also gigging for 10 years. What was the inaugural Eggs on Mars gig?
I can't quite remember. So there's two different ones that like stick out. It either was this coffee shop in the little town that we kind of grew up in called Pleasant Hill, and we played a coffee shop show there. We played a lot of our first shows there. Actually, the guy that ran it, his name's Alan Voss, and he's like a great jazz guitar player.
Okay.
He actually put an album out last year as well. So he like kind of helped foster this kind of cool little music scene. Huh. I don't know if the scene is pretty generous, but it's like us and like my buddy's other band. But we played there. It was either that or we filled in last minute at a show at Davies Uptown.
Oh. Okay.
So maybe that's kind of like the first show, and like the first show, like on a bigger scale. So not scale, but
Now, did you before were you in bands or doing stuff on your own before Eggs on Mars?
I was not. So Eggs on Mars is my first and only musical project. Justin and Mason were in a high school band. They were in a band together called Consider the Lemming, and so
Consider the Lemming.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we kind of like were like formed out of that, and like then that band kind of dissolved, and we've just kind of kept going.
Okay. So are you a person that has nerves when it comes time to get on for that first gig? At least, were you nervous about performing, and has that stayed with you? If so, or have you watched it sort of wane over the years?
Actually, yeah, I was terrified to play in front of people, and actually, the reason I wasn't in Justin and Mason's other band was because I had such bad stage fright, like I didn't want to do it. Like very early iterations of that band included me, and then like we were gonna play like a gig at like a church, and like there's a tornado and it got canceled. And I was like so excited, like I was glad, and then like and then another show like me and Justin did just two guitars at like this snow cone place, and I just remember being like, this little snow cone stand in the town that we grew up in, and I was just like terrified, like I don't want to do this. So that kept me from wanting to do music for quite a while. But eventually, I just, I think I saw them like playing in Kansas City and stuff. I was like, oh, that's so cool, and I really wanted to do it. I saw them kind of like have a little bit of
the coolness helped you get over this hurdle.
I don't know.
Perhaps?
I don't know if it's the coolness. Like I don't know if it's the prestige or like but it's just like the fact that they were able to do it. Yeah. I was like, because I always wanted to do that. Like growing up, I'd like play guitar on my front porch and like pretend I was playing in front of people. I always wanted to do that. So I saw my friends doing it. I was like, if they're doing it, like
what are you doing, man? Get your acting.
Yeah. So that kind of encouraged me to try it, not be too scared. So and now like I mean I don't get too nervous doing it now. I mean there's always like a little bit of nervousness, but
hit that first note and everything sort of starts to melt away a little bit. Maybe.
Most of the time, yeah. Sometimes it's still kind of like terrifying. But.
Right. Fascinating artwork, album artwork for Warm Breakfast. Who's responsible for that?
My sister-in-law actually made that.
Okay.
She made 4 different paintings, and that's the one that we all liked the most. So.
Okay. And then album cover art for the other releases?
My mom, well, the one previous to that, the EP we did, was made by Jesse Bartmus, who used to be a local guy. Now he lives in L.A., but he made that one. And then my mom made the other 2, the blue one and the yellow one, for It Will Be Like It Was and Mama Pancake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. So are most of the responsibilities for Eggs on Mars, like figuring out album cover art and booking gigs and being in touch with studio guy when it's time to record, and social media. Are all these responsibilities sort of evenly distributed, or are you somebody shouldering the bulk of them, or
It's mostly me.
Mostly you?
It's mostly me.
But I mean, that would suggest to me that everybody else is like fine with it, and typically thumbs ups your choices and how things get handled. And
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No, yeah. Yeah, they're all very cool with
Very
that.
nice.
And I like doing it. I'm the most kind of like, I don't know, type A organized of the group. So
you
it makes sense.
got to have at least one, right?
Yeah. No, yeah. You have to. You have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Warm Breakfast and a number of other releases on the Eggs on Mars, Bandcamp, or Facebook. You can find stuff, Instagram, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Music, Tidal, etc., etc. A gig at Hillsiders on March 8th in Strawberry Hill, KCK. I'm not familiar with that venue, but it looks like it's been around for a minute.
Yeah. I've actually not played there either. I've
Okay.
known a couple friends that have had. So it's just kind of there's not a ton of places to play in Kansas City right now. So it's kind of like a chance to like check out a new space.
Sure.
So it seems like cool kind of aesthetic to it. So I'm excited about checking it out.
And along the line of band responsibilities, does that land, booking a gig like that start off with an email message? Do you guys have to do the outreach? Do folks ever say, hey?
Yeah, it goes both ways.
Both
like,
ways.
yeah, just kind of, we'll get offered shows, and then other times we want to like specifically play. That I think mostly this show is we're trying to play with our friends from Joplin, so we want to get them kind of a cool spot. So
How many folks are in this Joplin outfit?
3.
Okay,
Yeah.
and where will they hotel it? Will they crash with you guys?
They'll probably stay with me.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, good stuff. So, as I mentioned, really appreciate you being here. Appreciate the list. And again, largely fascinating. And each album was fascinating in and of itself, but the list, as I mentioned, strikes me for a younger person. And I usually just roll through them chronologically in release order. So if we do that, we go all the way back to 1968 with the Beach Boys and Friends. Right?
Yes.
Let's see here. 14 of 29 for them.
Yeah.
12 songs, 26 minutes. Similar trajectory for me musically. My 8 tracks of John Denver and the Oak Ridge Boys in my dad's van, and then my mom, 71 WHB. It was the oldies station before Oldies 95.
Okay.
And I've said this a million times before, but I always thought WHB were the call letters until I had, started this. It turns out it stands for World's Happiest Broadcasters.
That's great.
Because they're listening to oldies all the time.
So
I get right.
great.
But California in the 1960s, I love that some iteration of the word surf appears in each of their first 3 album titles.
Yeah.
And, the Beach Boys, known for vocal melodies, good vibes, a staple of that oldies fabric. But if you dive into them conceptually and musically, a lot of folks would point at Pet Sounds. And I have actually, before this, never sat down and intentionally put on a Beach Boys album. I mean, I've listened to tons of Beach Boys across my life, but mostly just it's organically happening. I'm not seeking it out. So I've never actually, that I can recall, sat down and put on Pet Sounds, let alone Friends. But so why does Pet Sounds get the love that it does, and why is this one special for you?
Well, I think Pet Sounds gets the love it does just because, like, I don't know. What can I say about Pet Sounds that hasn't been said?
But everything you're gonna say is gonna be new to me. So
I think it was like, especially for the Beach Boys, they're very much just like, let's get a soda pop, peachy keen, like kind of stuff. And so like they did this very kind of adult contemporary stuff, which that was around. Like Burt Bacharach was doing that a lot, but I think like they kind of married the two, and so they're kind of like trying to branch more kind of mature sounding pop music with like what they were doing. Instrumentation on there is pretty wild especially for the Beach Boys, just like lots of different sounds and instruments and things like that. So
beyond just bass, drums, guitar.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Now, how about Friends? Like, what's your introduction?
Yeah. So I wanted to choose a little more obscure album for the Beach Boys because I figured like if you've had anyone on here, they probably would talk about Pet Sounds.
First and only Beach Boys records through 108 episodes.
Okay,
so.
well, I'm proud to be referenced.
And that will be a theme that will largely continue across your list.
Yeah. Well, I feel like a lot of people stopped like liking the Beach Boys, kind of like in like the late '60s and '70s. They're like, oh, they're like, it's like primary school stuff. That's just like real immature and kind of lame. But I really like the stuff they did in like the late '60s and '70s. Like Sunflower is also really good. I like after I sent this, I was like, oh, maybe I should have said Sunflower. But it's just
you're giving it shouts out right now.
Oh yeah. But it's just like it's just a great, nice little concise record. Just some goofy songs on there, like what's that one? That Busy Doing Nothing. It's like a little like bossa nova.
Yeah.
Or there's like some weird Transcendental Meditation's not my favorite track, but like there's some weird stuff on there.
But there's a very serious lane of folks that are into the notion of transcendental meditation.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there are workshops and specialists and so it caught my eye,
It's what's funny. It's like the least meditative track.
Well,
on the
I thought the
album.
track before it was more meditative.
Like pretty much everything on there is. And it's like the most like spastic like.
Yeah.
It's a Mike Love song. So
Okay.
I'm definitely Brian Wilson guy.
Okay.
But it's just like it's I love it so warm. It's so cohesive and like nothing like takes itself too seriously. But yet there's some still like really cool, interesting musical things on there. Instrumental passing by. Just like it's just nice little moments, and I think as I have written more music, like my songs have gotten shorter and more concise, and just like trying to really like whittle down the song to like the core of what makes it catchy and like interesting, and so that's kind of what he does.
I mean, track length, and vibe on Warm Breakfast definitely
huge influence.
Harkened me back to the listen of Friends. And it doesn't take a math whiz. 12 songs, 26 minutes there, in and out. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the opening little thing is like 40 seconds long or something like that.
Yeah. It was a longer song, but they cut it down just to that.
Huh.
So, yeah.
Interesting. So Brian Wilson, who was the other name that you mentioned?
Mike Love.
Mike Love. So Brian Wilson, kind of credit as a founder, but then did he pass?
He's still alive.
They're still alive.
They're both alive. Yeah.
Why did I think somebody from the Beach Boys was no longer around?
Carl Wilson is dead, Brian's brother,
Okay.
and Dennis Wilson, his other brother, has also passed. So
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so this one is really right in the middle of their discography at 14 of 29. How familiar with the rest of their records are you?
I'm pretty familiar with all the 60s stuff. And then Brian was like he had a lot of like mental health issues around Pet Sounds and stuff. And so he was around for this and like a little bit of Sunflower. Once Brian kind of checked out, I kind of am not as interested in them stuff. So.
And what is it that you feel is why? Like what was different about?
I think just a lot of people credit Brian Wilson with being like the heart and the soul of the Beach Boys and like the pure song, and like Mike Love is kind of painted as sort of this kind of just trying to make money and like sort of just like just like wanting to sell records and not really about the artistic. So Brian's kind of seen as like the artistic like genius, and Mike Love is kind of seen as this sort of like just in it for the money, like shallow.
Are you familiar with Bare Naked Ladies?
Vaguely, yeah. Just
I think it's them that has a song that says something. The refrain is something along the lines of "lying in bed, just like Brian Wilson said or did." And I've never like Googled the lyrics or anything about it to try to figure out what the heck they're talking about. But it's always stood out as interesting.
That was like during one of Brian Wilson's like kind of mental crises. There was like this thing that like where they said that he stayed in bed for like 3 years or something. So like,
What?
yeah,
Wow.
and he was like over. He like gained a lot of weight and just was.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. So
Huh.
that's kind of what that's probably from.
Yeah. Wow. So, are you a vinyl person?
I'm not like a vinyl snob, but like I do like. I'm actually pretty like open. Like I like listen to vinyl records, but I have CDs and tapes too.
Sure.
So it's whatever I can get it on.
Yeah.
Really.
Did I see that Warm Breakfast was available on cassette
Cassette and CD. Yeah.
and CD? Now, for a quick second, I was a cassette holdout for like late 90s. Music store people were like, dude, I'm having to bring inventory in for you. Like, stop. But we've seen a huge vinyl renaissance. But for a minute, just a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, it looked like there was maybe going to be a cassette revival, and I don't think it.
No, there's a slight one. I mean, Taylor Swift, her Taylor's versions of her last 2 albums, like they're on cassette.
Okay.
So there's still like it's not near as big as vinyl,
Right.
but there's still like a small, like slight incline of interest in cassettes, and a lot of like modern pop artists do put their album out on cassette.
Okay.
So
Now, do you own any Beach Boys on vinyl?
yeah, I do. I've got a couple. I think I've got Beach Boys Today. I don't have Friends because it's incredibly rare because it wasn't very popular, so they didn't like make a lot of. They didn't press a lot of them, so like it's kind of like it'd be like kind of a holy grail vinyl find for me.
Right.
So, yeah.
Now, this may sound like a foolish question to ask, but I mean, if you are just really, let's say you did have a copy of it and you're just really hankering for a top to back, front to back listen of this record, is there in your heart of hearts a difference between putting some headphones on and listening to it via a streaming platform as opposed to putting on a record? I mean, I know you get the have and the hold with the record. You get the smell, and you read and you learn, and you get the crackle of the sound, and so on and so forth. But is for you specifically?
Yeah, I'm not like a big audiophile. I
Okay.
mean, like I think for me, I get the same. It's like it's probably like maybe even better quality if you're listening to it on streaming versus like a record that might be like scratched or whatever. But
Sure.
yeah,
Fair enough. So a very short leap from Friends in '68 to the band, self-titled, 1969, second of 12 songs, 44 minutes, and we go from California to Toronto. I'm not a huge student of the band. I've known Levon Helm's name most of my life, and Robbie Robertson probably came into my fold not too long after that. But it wasn't until like fairly recently, I feel like if I'm in the neighborhood of anything the band related, Rick Danko and Richard Manuel seem to be getting tons of shouts out. How much of a band student are you?
I'm not as much as the Beach Boys, I would say.
Okay.
I mean, I'm pretty much like the band, the Brown Album, and then music from Big Pink. Those are pretty much the 2 band records that I really love those 2. But that's probably the most that I really listen to from them.
And as far as this one particularly goes, what's your introduction story to it?
My friend Justin, who was my former bass player, he introduced this album to me.
The one that's in Japan?
The one's in Japan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We were kind of like, growing up, we'd be like, here's, listen to Bob Dylan, Blonde on Blonde. And
Nice.
so he laid this one on me. So, and it took a while for it to click with me. I would listen to it earlier on and be like, yeah, it's okay. But then I remember like when I was like in college, I was like, oh, it's like, that's really good. And I think it's like the Americana of it and like kind of growing up in the Midwest. I have a lot of family that's from Arkansas, where Levon Helm is kind of from.
Okay.
And so I feel like a kind of like a spiritual connection to that sort of folksy Americana music and songs like "The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down," and just "Up on Cripple Creek," stuff like that.
Yep.
So
now I every once in a while I'll cross paths with somebody that's like a super the band fan, and I feel like a common thread amongst the folks from that tribe is they will talk to you about The Last Waltz for as long as you want to listen. And I've never watched it. But have you? What is it? Do you know what the appeal is for folks?
I've watched it. I think it's just because Martin Scorsese directed it.
That's
So
what I thought.
it's kind of like, big name director.
Yeah.
It's good. It's really long. They have like a lot of people come out, and there's a lot of cool like guest spots. Like Neil Young's on there, and
Okay.
oh man, Joni Mitchell and stuff. So yeah,
Right on.
yeah.
So Big Pink and this self-titled or Brown album are the primary two for you. Have you given others a whirl and been like, eh?
Yeah, Stage Fright I think is the third one, and
Okay.
I've listened to it. It doesn't have quite the same feel. It doesn't have quite the same heart to it that those first two do.
Okay.
And then like Islands is another one, and it's just like, yeah, they're okay, and I feel like they kind of like they nailed the sort of folky sound on these two, and like
Sure.
they're still kind of like they're still doing it, but like it didn't really have the same kind of like
Okay.
wow, like novel, like yeah.
Well, speaking of Neil Young, and this will be one of two from 1970, after the Gold Rush. Now, trying to get a finite number on Neil Young studio records is a challenge. My math says that there are 28 that are not with Crazy Horse and not with any other outfits, because he's done so many different Pearl Jam. And really, like, even if you want to include Crazy, I mean, so he does self-titled, he does Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere, he does Harvest, and then he does this, right? I think is the order.
This then Harvest actually. This is
This,
before.
then Harvest.
Yes.
Okay. But I mean, just like, I'm not super familiar with, I mean, it's been a long time since I listened to his self-titled debut, but those three, I mean, it's just home run after home run. And, I would very frequently see in my trips to the music store and shopping exclusively in the cassette section, I would see Harvest and After the Gold Rush packaged together.
I have that cassette.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
I
did?
have-
Okay. So, fascinating choice of an album for a guy that put out some killer records. And the way that it opens, it just, I mean, I haven't put this record on in a good while, but I put it on to brush up and it's like opening note, opening line, opening vibe. It's just this very specific sort of sad sorrow, but beautiful. And it just rides this way. It departs from it occasionally with a track or two, but it sort of seems to return to that emotional playground. I mean, it's just a really, really powerful record. And I'm curious what your introduction to Neil was and how this one wound up having a spot on your list.
Yeah, I'm looking through the track list. Like, man, this is like pretty much everything's pretty much a downer. Like, but it's so great. So obviously,
Hey, Cripple Creek, as it's ending, All right, that's
a little minute and a half.
Yeah,
See, that's
yeah.
great. A minute and a half, and it's in and out.
Yeah.
So, Harvest is obviously like that's like his most popular. This one's really special because this was like my family's introduction to Neil Young. Really.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we would go to the library, and they had this CD, and we checked it out. And I remember listening to this with my dad, like when he would drive to like basketball practice with me. And so like I remember like listening and just really loving these songs. And then like my older brother still, like anytime he picks up a guitar, he plays "Tell Me Why," the first song. It's like just a go-to song that we all kind of gravitate towards. And my family likes really sad music, so it like makes sense that this would be an album that kind of like just got stuck in our mind. And yeah, so it's kind of got that connection to it. But then from there, we're like, oh, there's Harvest, and for me, it's like, oh, there's the Ditch trilogy. There's On the Beach, and there's all this other stuff. So
Ditch trilogy.
that's everything after Harvest. So he didn't want to be like Harvest was really popular, and he didn't like want to acknowledge that. So he made 3 albums after that. They're kind of like, they weren't commercially successful, but like they're like really heralded now. And
Okay,
that's,
interesting.
On the Beach. Oh my gosh.
Is Zuma in that mix? No.
That's a little later on.
Okay.
It's the oh man, I can't remember what the live one's called, and then the Tonight's the Night, and there's one in between there too.
Let's see here. Okay, so after the gold rush harvest, time fades away.
That's it.
On the beach, tonight's the night, and then Zuma's all same year as tonight's the night.
Oh, is it okay?
But it's with Crazy Horse.
Yeah.
Wow. So stereo system in the family room in your folks' house, I would guess, with a CD player.
In the car. Yeah.
You guys are. What do you got? You 6 of you are rolling around listening to music together?
I mean, it's mostly split up. It'd be like me and my dad going to basketball
okay.
practice, or me and mom in the van, from school or whatever. So.
When you came downstairs, you asked about the dribble stick.
Uh-huh.
So you did play ball.
I did. Yes, I did.
How long?
I played all the way through high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And do you get after it at all now? Or?
I play every once in a while.
Okay.
I'll walk down to the local school and play some just shoot around. But I don't play in a league or anything and stuff. So.
And I'm sorry, was it 4 days Fort Osage High?
That's where my parents went. I went to Pleasant Hill.
Pleasant Hill. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What is that 7? What do you?
Yep, 7 Highway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I know. I used to call on somebody out there too. I want to say El Puerto.
Yep.
Was the Mexican restaurant on that primary run through? I think maybe
it's still there. I think.
Yeah. I thought it was something else now, but maybe not. Maybe not.
It might be. I've not been there for a while, but yeah.
Okay. How many people went to your high school?
I can't remember what my graduating class was. I think it's 200 something.
You're in your class or the
in my class?
Okay.
Yeah. So a decent size. I mean, it was pretty, growing.
And at the time, were there, freshman, sophomore, JV, and varsity basketball teams, or?
I think freshman, JV, and varsity. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many of those years did you play varsity?
All 4.
As a freshman?
Yep.
Started?
Yes. I did. I started every game. Actually, I hold the school record for rebounds.
Hey.
And I scored 1,000 points, I think, and that's
what?
the club. So
holy smokes, that's amazing. Right now, my kids are at a K through 8 spot, and Friday nights during basketball season, it's the place to be, and we're talking teeny, right? Mm-hmm. But I remember when I was in high school, my class had 408, I think. So, there's 2,000, whatever. So anyway, there's not a spot in the bleachers if you are late or whatever. And it's taken me the journey from attending high school basketball games in high school to being a parent and attending their games to remember what that felt like for 3 months or whatever out of in the winter. Were your games well attended?
Yeah, they were. They definitely were.
A thing to do, a place to be.
Uh-huh.
And did you? Was there any question as a freshman that you would play varsity, or did you have to earn a spot? Was it just understood that you had the skills and the whatnot?
I think it was maybe understood a little bit. I was 6 foot in 5th grade, so I was just a huge person. In
what grade?
5th grade.
You were 6 foot?
Yes, yeah. I was a huge man child for a long time. So yeah.
Now, did any upperclassmen have beef with the idea that a freshman was starting?
Oh, yeah. I still feel bad for a couple guys that were seniors, and I started over them and stuff. So.
But they weren't breaking records.
Well, I wasn't that great my freshman year. I think it was just kind of I almost think maybe it was sort of
get you used to it,
get me used to it type thing. Because they were done after that year, so it's just they're home. It was a little overwhelming actually to be that young and play varsity.
I bet
I didn't enjoy it all the time, but yeah.
How about after freshman year?
I enjoyed it a little more, yeah.
But it was never super awesome.
No, not really.
So was it just huge man child as a young person? You're just kind of pushed in the direction of playing.
I mean, I liked playing. I loved games, which I think is actually kind of interesting. Like, I still like performing for like people, and so I think like the games are fun. Like, I hated practice. Didn't like doing that.
What was it about practice?
Just it was every day. I didn't want to do it.
Every day.
It was every day after school. I wanted to go home and play music. But yeah, I loved playing games. Games were fun. I never really cared that much about winning. I was pretty. I mean, I'm not really like a super competitive
Sure.
So it's kind of just like a short little blip phase in my life where I was like playing sports. And
Wow.
Stuff, so.
Are you still in communication with anybody from those teams, or?
Like sort of vaguely. Like the assistant coach. Like I still see him at stuff. He wants to come to see us play a show. So maybe he will.
Oh
so,
wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
Well, yeah, it's tough to, as I encourage or delicately force basketball upon my children. It's tough for me to. I mean, I never had I was the smallest kid in school until summer of going into senior year, and then I grew like an insane amount. I mean, I was so short and so weighed nothing. So it wasn't. Nobody from the basketball world was like, come here, let's see what you got. But I feel like I could have. I played, for 4 years, and if I would have had a basketball goal in the driveway at my mom's, but it was just outside of games and practice, which were twice a week. It's just me shooting in the driveway, and it's like if I would have had just a little something more, not that I would have started, varsity, but I might have gotten a look as a freshman or something. And I just feel like I don't exactly know how to put my finger on it, but I feel like there's a lot about the game that can spill into other areas of your life. Confidence, teamwork, anyway. Enough about basketball, but
I'll come back for the March of Madness.
There you go.
Episode.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So after the Gold Rush is a family intro and favorite for you guys. Any other outside of the Ditch trilogy? I mean, for me, I'm not consuming his entire library as a high schooler, but a lot. I mean, I'm buying, I had probably 6, 7, 8 cassettes and then Harvest Moon came out, and I was like, I didn't know that you were ever going to return to this level of amazing, and I really do feel like that's a fantastic record. I also really liked Sleeps with Angels.
Oh, is it the Pearl Jam one? No, that's the one kind of about like Kurt Cobain, like maybe a little bit kind of 90s grunge one, right? Actually, I've not heard that one, so I can't really.
Dude,
that's too.
I mean, let me actually just make sure I'm talking about the right one, because I was in college when it came out.
He does so many though; it's hard to keep track of. He's probably put out like 3 or 4 this year already. Who knows?
Yeah, his list is crazy.
It's a lot to get through.
Sleeps with Angels is right after Harvest Moon, so 94. Wow. Mirror Ball was with Pearl Jam. Broken Arrow, I forgot about that one. But Sleeps with Angels, yeah, this is totally the one. Drive By, Change Your Mind, 12 tracks. Not all of them are amazing, but there's a few on there that are incredible. Any other Neil records beyond Harvest or the Ditch trilogy that have been favorites for you?
I was almost between this one and Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere.
Okay.
Just because that one, that informed, I was like, that's how I want to do guitar solos. It's just like that, Down by the River, Cowgirl in the Sand. Just that sort of sporadic,
Have you ever seen, I'm a huge Fish guy.
Oh, no.
Have you ever seen Neil and Fish do?
No.
I think it's Cowgirl in the Sand. No, it might be Down by the River. Either way, Farm Aid.
Oh, cool.
Remember this?
Oh, yeah.
And so this is, late 80s, early 90s. and they just, it's like 17 minutes.
No, I don't doubt it. Yeah,
I mean,
awesome.
and Trey just can't. His
Yeah.
smile is so huge, and Trey and Neil take turns doing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and Neil comes out with a kind of like a hat like Willie's got on that record, and he's shredding so that the hat goes flying, and it is a really, really remarkable
awesome.
Performance. If you ever want to YouTube
I'll
it.
have to watch that. Yes.
Now, of course, in across 17 minutes, it is not get in, get out, short, sweet, cut down. So they go down some paths where you're like, all right, boys, bring it back. Like we get it, but mostly it is phenomenal. That's a great one. And not too terribly long of a record.
No, not really. I mean, it's basically those two songs that are each like I think around 10 minutes, and then there's like the title track, Cinnamon Girl.
Yep.
A couple other ones that are kind of like, they're okay. But
Right.
just those two tracks really make that album worth listening to. And Cinnamon Girl's really great.
Yeah,
too,
of
so,
course.
Yeah.
So this was after the Gold Rush was September of 70, and then Emitt Rhodes,
Yeah,
self-titled December of 70.
Oh.
Second of 5, 12 tracks, 31 minutes. Back to get in, get out, get on with your life.
Yes.
It looks like this dude has had a fascinating story, but I'd like to hear you tell what you know of it, please. Because I knew the name, and then I really only I add to my music via a super huge playlist that only lives on Spotify, which I don't pay for, so I can only access it through Shuffle. But if I hear something cool, I'll add it to Apple Music in my library. So when I went to look it up, there was an Emitt Rhodes record already in my library that I had obviously heard and been like, this is cool. And I added it. But when I sat down, I was like, I don't know who this guy is. Turns out I kind of do. But anyway.
There's not a ton about him. He was in a 60s psychedelic pop group called, I think, like the Merry-Go-Round. And they did like one record, maybe two, and they disbanded. And then he did one record before this called like American Dream. That's like, it's like, okay. But then this is his like.
And was released without his permission, apparently.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Like he didn't really like how it sounded or something. Like it was kind of like a contractual. Actually, it might have been that he needed to fulfill the contract for the Merry-Go-Round record, and that's what it became.
Oh, interesting.
Carousel or whatever
that
group was called. But very much, trying to encapsulate the sounds of the day. You know, the Beatles and like, especially with this one, it sounds like Paul McCartney's first solo album a lot. So
I mean, the whole thing sounds
it does.
Beatles. And in fact, somewhere I came across a line where they're like, this guy's a one-man Beatles outfit. And I mean, to that end, he's all instruments and vocals are him.
Yeah.
How did he land in your lap?
Man, I'm not quite. I think probably my bass player and friend Doug probably told me about him. Actually, no, it was my drummer Mason told me about him.
Okay.
So
recently,
probably within the last couple years.
Okay.
But it was just it's been like so. Just like that's what I want to do. That I wanted to include it with this. So.
Yes, absolutely, and recorded everything.
Yeah.
At his home.
DIY.
And apparently back then that was not okay with the big labels.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
And like some things were changed, like maybe even a title somewhere, and then he wanted some kind of wording to say that, and they're like, no, because it's got to be done in a professional.
Yeah. Which is so weird now.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's making records in their basement. So I think the DIY aesthetic is cool, and like this record and like McCartney were the first time people really kind of did that. And I think when Paul McCartney did it, it's like, oh well, it's kind of cool, I guess. So.
When Paul McCartney did what?
Started doing a solo album. So McCartney is recorded at home, and then Ram is also recorded at home, kind of his first two solo ones. So people kind of started to experiment with that home recording a little bit and stuff.
I also saw that he records this on a 4-track, and then somehow transfers it to 8-track so that he can layer in vocals and something. I mean, I don't understand a lot of
Yeah,
how
I
that
don't-
works,
yeah.
so it was just fascinating. I know that at 4-track, like Forever was kind of the staple, right? And then all of a sudden there's an 8 and there's a 16, and who even knows how many it
Oh,
goes
yeah.
up to now. But other stuff. He's been in a. No, I'm thinking of something else. But I mean, he's put out 4 others besides this, the merry-go-round stuff, and then was there another outfit he was part of?
I think it was just the merry-go-round, and then the one before this one, and then the self-titled, and then he did another one after this, which I don't think is as good. And then like quite some time later, like probably 30 or 20 years later, he did another record, like his last record. I think he's actually passed since. So
Okay,
that's like the
okay.
Rainbow
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
I've actually not
Yes.
listened to it, but I've heard it's like very sad, but
Oh.
pretty good. So
okay.
yeah, I'd probably like it.
Yeah. Put it on right after the Gold Rush.
Yes.
So we go 68, 69, 2 stops in 70, and then we leap all the way to 2012 with Chris Cohen, Overgrown Path.
Yeah.
1 of 3, 9 tracks, 33 minutes, short and sweet.
Yep.
And back to California to close it all out. Never heard of this fella. Tell me what you know about him and how you came to know this record.
Yeah. So, do you know the band Deerhoof?
I didn't.
They're like I didn't really know them that well either, but they're like a really big like 2000s era like avant-garde indie band, and he was in that band. But I really got into him because he is on Captured Tracks, and they put out a lot of albums. Like Mac DeMarco was on that label, and so I was kind of like listening to a lot of that stuff and seeing what else was on that label, and he was one of the bands on there, and so kind of found him through that and just kind of fell in love with just his nice, soft, subtle, but very interesting, and obviously like from a music background, just complex time signatures and things I don't really understand.
Right.
And it's like different syncopation. But just really great music. And this is his first solo album that he did.
He was the one I was thinking about just a second ago that has been in like a bunch of different outfits.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Deerhoof's solo stuff, and then
Kind of a hired gun. He played with I think Ariel Pink and Cass McCombs.
yes, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah. And then actually I think he was in another project called The Curtain. So he's been in quite a few different things over the years.
Been a busy fella.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really great. So let's see here. This was not only a big leap forward years wise, but something of a stylistic departure as compared to the band and Neil Young and Emitt Rhodes, and I mean, I almost wondered for a second if this was a person that you knew. Like, I want to give him props. But it made, I mean, it rounded out your list nicely, but it was a curveball for sure for me.
Yeah. I want to put something modern in there. I was like, well, I can't, I mean, I definitely could name 5 albums that I love just from the 60s and 70s alone.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of 60s kind of sounds in this too. So there's some sonic similarities and stuff, but yeah, maybe a little jazzier sounding in some ways. So, but yeah, just great stuff. And there's some good like pop stuff on there, and some somber stuff like Heartbeat, and just lots of great, interesting guitar stuff. I like his guitar tone a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, again, Eggs on Mars playing March 8th at Hillsiders in KCK. Is there... Warm Breakfast came out last year. Is there a new batch of material that's either on the front or the back burner, or where are you at in terms of...
We're cooking away. We've got 5 new ones that we've learned. I've got about another half dozen. So we're in the midst of like writing and like kind of demoing stuff right now.
Cool.
So
you guys get together once a week, or
a couple times a month.
a couple times a month?
Yeah.
And now, let's say, just because it's a nice round number, 10 tracks for an album. when you bring, I mean, have there been tracks that you've brought to the fellas that didn't make it onto an album, that either for whatever, like it's just not working, or you shelved it for a later project, or is it always like, here are the 10 and here's the record, and here's the 10 and here's the record?
It is usually like that. It's usually pretty like slim. Like, this is the group we have. I can think of like maybe like one or two songs over the years that were like, yeah, that's not really working.
Okay,
and stuff.
but
So
for the most part, square peg, square hole. They
usually, yeah, and we usually just like that's what we've got. So it's like there's usually not like any more. There's not a lot of like fat two.
Sure.
Because there's just not. Because if we did like the album would be like 18 minutes or whatever. So
is there a way to describe how the songwriting process begins or happens for you in a song? Is it a lyric? Is it a riff? Does it vary?
It's usually an inspired chord progression. So,
Okay.
So it's usually like I'm like, well, not actually, maybe not a chord progression, but like it's chords, and like I can feel that there's a good melody within it. So everything I'm doing now, I'm really all about melody.
Okay.
And like chords aren't really as important, but it's all about like how the melody fits onto that. But your chords need to be good, and your chords need to like have the ability to have that really interesting melody over it and stuff. So
you say inspired chord progression, and immediately the riff to Fearless, Pink Floyd.
Oh yeah.
Dun,
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 dun, dun,
dun, dun, dun,
Yeah,
dun.
that ascending.
Like
Yes.
that the day that I heard that, I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I didn't know you could do that. That is so. And for, I had an electric and I had an acoustic. I've had a couple other, but I never put in the hours, right? I didn't have the discipline to pick it up for 90 minutes or 2 hours every day. But I remember trying to like figure out, if I could just figure out how to play that riff in Fearless, like all of my music boxes will be checked.
Yeah.
And I quickly gave up and then only recently via a TikTok or an Instagram reel did I see somebody, he's got it, these two strings tuned down to D, and this is blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, yeah.
That is a great riff.
Yes. So cool. You got a gig coming up. You got some stuff you're working on, material wise. Now, will you wait until the project is close to finish before you explore something like album cover art, or is that a thing that you kind of work on simultaneously, or who knows?
Yeah, it just kind of depends. I've even got like ideas for what I'm thinking of, so it just kind of it kind of happens along with the album.
Okay.
Too. So it won't be fully done before we probably have the album art and stuff. So
Right on.
We'll be in the midst of working on it probably.
Cool. So I like to finish with a series of goofy-ish questions and then wrap and get you out of here. The first one is if we can assume that everybody's got some version of a personal and a professional bucket list. You're given the resources to tackle the top spot on both of those lists. So your number one personal and your number one professional, you're given all the resources to go do them. What are they?
So personal and professional?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't really know. Personal. I don't know. It'd be cool to like tour more, I guess, with the band.
Okay.
We go out and we've played like this last fall we went to like Minneapolis and stuff. So we've gone like surrounding states, but it'd be cool to do like something like that on an even bigger scale, I guess. So that'd be kind of a personal thing, I guess. And then professional would just be like to somehow have enough money that I don't have to worry about the professional side and just focus on the music. I don't think I'd want music to be the professional thing, but yeah.
Okay. Now, when you like went to Minneapolis, for example, a band is a fascinating concept for many reasons, but finding time that works for everybody to get together and rehearse or work on new material or practice for a gig or record. And then, of course, going out of town to perform live, you got to, for all four fellas, is that a difficult thing to organize, or does everybody kind of like, all hands on deck to make this opportunity work, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's why we pretty much just, when we go out of town, it's usually just like one weekend thing. So we just find like one weekend, and then we'll all work, and we pick that one, and we just kind of, just make it work with whatever.
So when you went to Minneapolis, was it for one gig, or were there multiple gigs?
We went to Ames, Iowa. We played a show there, and then we went to Minneapolis, and then we went to Vermilion, South Dakota. So we did like a little 3 show.
Cool.
And we'll do that again in April too, actually.
Same venues?
In April, we're going south. We're going to Oklahoma, actually. So
cool. Where?
We're going to Oklahoma City, and we're going to Norman, and we're going to Springfield in Missouri. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, all of the details associated with booking that northern little loop and then this upcoming one, all on your plate?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, somebody's got to do it, I guess. Yeah. So. If you are given the ability to have lunch with anybody of your choosing, dead or alive, who are you choosing and why?
Man. That's a tough one. Kurt Vonnegut.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
he's a great author. He seems like he'd be really funny and just have a lot of interesting little things to say without being too like pretentious about them.
I love that answer. He was such a great author, and then he's got at least one like super famous commencement speech, and then other like little one-off things like that where the message, of whatever the thing was is like preserved and lives on. And anytime I see a lengthy Kurt Vonnegut post that somebody has shared on Facebook, I'm like, oh,
it's great. It's gonna be good. Because he pokes, like he's not like overly optimistic, but like he's not like just nihilistic.
Right.
He's still just kind of like everything's kind of absurd, but like I don't know, he's got like a good outlook on it.
Absolutely. Good answer. You're given the ability to visit your past self at any age of your choosing. What age are you choosing, and what are you saying?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know. Just my younger, just like, when I'm like 4 and just say like, enjoy this. Like it's fun.
Okay.
It's fun to be 4.
Fair. Complete this for me, if you would, please. The world would immediately become a better place in which to live if only
everyone would listen to Eggs on Mars.
Hey, that counts.
That
counts.
Kind of self-serving, but
that's okay. So you get out and see shows of other artists these days. True or false? It's okay and acceptable to wear the T-shirt of the band whose show you're going to.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
I don't. But I'm not gonna hate on anyone that does.
I love it. That's the best caveat I've gotten to that question to date. Brad Smith, Eggs on Mars, is on Instagram, Facebook, Bandcamp, wherever you stream your audio stuff.
Yeah.
March 8th, Hillsiders and KCK. New material is on the Stovetop, and an Oklahoma/Missouri trio of shows to be announced quasi soonish.
Yeah.
What else is there something that you were hoping that we would cover that we didn't?
No, that's great.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you being here, making the trek in, especially here in these, final-ish weeks of it being dark so early.
Yeah.
As a non-29-year-old, driving at night is actually, you hear the old people talk about that when you're young, and then you're like,
go. Let's get dark.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm also relatively new to the world of glasses.
Oh.
So, yeah. I was 5 years late to make an appointment, and then I just got my second pair a week ago, and that was 4 years past.
Yeah.
But just dark and lights and street signs is one thing, and then rain on top of it, it's just like
the glare,
bro. This is so. I wish it was sunlight and the roads were frozen because I would be less stressed. Not really, but nevertheless, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. All right, talk to you soon.